had thoughts of ending my life because it was just at points where it was just unbearable. And very close to our house, there was a train track. So there was trains passing by very often. So I thought, well, that would be an easy way out, right? It could just be fast and done. And I thought quite a lot about that. But then at one point I decided, no, I deserve to see what I can do with my life.
Hi, I'm Mr. Williams, Global Transformation Coach, and welcome to another episode of Physique Transformation, the podcast where I connect like-minded people from all over the globe that are very passionate to help you transform your life in whatever area you desire. And on today's show, I have Anja Rogan Pirc, all the way from Russia. She is a serial entrepreneur, a sales strategist. She's an international speaker. She started a career selling door to door and worked her way up to the executive sales position in a global multi-million-dollar company in a very demanding industry. She's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs from over 31 countries worldwide start and scale their business too. She's recognized as a powerful yet genuine female figure in the industry who has shared stages with some of the most influential people in the world. Anja lost her mum when she was just 4 years old. It was 3 days before mum's 27th birthday, and her life started to take a downhill tumble from there. And that's the reason I brought her on this show, so to understand what picked her up, helped her rise and continue to rise to the top of the industry and progress even further. So anyone out there wanting to gain strength and wanting to gain compassion and move productively forward, we're here to help and we're here to discuss. So Anja, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very well. How is the weather now? We had a brief conversation before we started.
Yeah, I think I actually confused it a little bit with the Russian comment. I live in Germany, but I am Slovenian. So it's, but we say always in Slovenia, us, and the Russians, there's 4 million of us because Slovenia is only 2 million population. And it's very similar language as well. So it's kind of, we like to see each other as still brothers and sisters from way past when we had the same roots. But yeah, it's actually raining, but it doesn't matter because I have a lot to do.
Keeps you indoors, and you know, we're all brothers and sisters from the nation. The world is a lot smaller now from Zoom. So obviously anybody who's been following my story knows that I lost my father when I was 6 years old, you know, and I had a tremendous impact and impression left on my life. And it wasn't until my kind of early 30s where I started understanding the impact that did really have. And then I looked and observed many of my friends who were either brought up without the father from a loss, or just, you know, in all honesty, the neighborhood I was brought up into, you know, there would be many children who just didn't know who their father were, or maybe their father didn't want to know who they were. So I watched many people go down this kind of destructive path, and many people go down a constructive path. And what we certainly know that any traumatic experience, you know, when you're young, the first thing we tend to do is just blame ourselves. You know, a child will always think the world is, it's very a narcissistic mindset being a child. You think everything is to do with you in the world. So I just want to, you know, if you don't mind, you know, rewind back to them, you know, early years of your life. You know, if we can talk a little bit about your mum's passing, of course, and then, you know, what kind of impression did that have on you initially?
Yeah, this is actually a topic that it can be very sad if you look at it from what it really was, but it can be also, when you get through that, it can be very empowering, and that's only possible when you process a lot. So I've been doing a lot of processing, and it's exactly what you said. It starts with you blaming yourself, or not even necessarily blaming yourself, but maybe just thinking you're not worthy of having, you know, what everyone else has. That was the case for me. So I was the only child in school that I remember who didn't have a mom. And there was another girl that I found out about later that she also didn't have a mom, but she at least got a nice stepmother. I didn't even get that. I got a horrible stepmother later on. But what I remember from the day when my mom passed, I actually remember it as if it was yesterday. I remember I was standing in the kitchen. My grandma was preparing lunch. It was past 2 p.m. It must have been about 20-25 past, because I know that's about the time when my father would come home. And then a bit after that, my mom would come home from their jobs. So because they started at 6 a.m. and then they worked till 2. That's how it was in those days. And she was driving home. And I remember that I was just watching, in the direction that I was watching was the window that was in front of the entry door into the house. So we had a kitchen and the dining room, and then the entrance you were able to see through the dining room window. And there were 2 police officers who came to the door, and they knocked on the door. And my grandpa went to open, because that was unusual. Why would the police come in the middle of the day? Nobody knew about anything special happening. So he went to open the door, and all I heard was, "Did Mira live here?" And he said, "Yes." And the police officer says, "Well, we regret to inform you that she had a car accident and she didn't survive." And then I remember him grabbing his head, screaming, crying, running past me into the living room and screaming so loud. I never heard him cry or scream so loud ever before or after. He was in such a shock. He couldn't believe. I started crying. I didn't know what was happening. I was not yet 4 years old. I had a few months before I was 4 years. And my father, as he just got home just a few minutes earlier as well, I started crying, and I looked to him and I said, "What happened? I want mommy." And he said, "Sweetie, mommy is not coming home anymore." And that is still very, when I go back into that, I just have to control myself, because it's really still emotional. I always feel that loss. And from then on, yes, it did go downhill, because my father and my grandparents, those were the parents of my mother. We lived together in that house. They didn't really get along. They started blaming each other whose fault it was that she died, which is ridiculous, because it was no one's fault. But she apparently had a sudden heart attack. She was in the car, and when you have a heart attack, you lean or fall to your left. And so she did, and she pulled the steering wheel, and she hit the truck that was coming in her way as well. But apparently she was already gone when that happened, so at least she saved herself that. But it's just the whole traumatic, even the idea of what happened is horrible, and to carry that around. And I remember the funeral and how I had fear of going to funerals for years after that. I avoided going to funerals or to graveyards, because I just remembered how those flowers were being thrown into that hole when she was lowered into the hole. It was horrible. So all of these things were with me, and I had this tremendous amount of sadness in me that I didn't know how to process, and I carried it in me because I didn't know how to even express it. I didn't have anyone to talk about it. No one really asked us about it. We were just kind of also left to ourselves. Our father didn't know how to handle 3 kids. We were 3. My older brother was a year and a half older than I was, and my younger brother is 2 years younger. So he was literally not even 2 years old when she passed. And so we were kind of left to ourselves. We would be outside playing a lot just with the other kids from that street. But if that were the only thing that would happen, that wouldn't be a problem, right? You're just kind of on your own, and that's fine. But we had really a lot of struggling I had with was the fighting that was happening in the house after. So that was an additional stress. We had police over many times with my grandfather and my father fighting, and it was really terrible until we then moved out. And then again, you would hope that would be the end of it. But in the meantime, we got a stepmother who was terrible, absolutely terrible. Imagine the worst case of Cinderella story. I mean, I was literally called Cinderella by several of my friends because they knew the situation. And there were a few other things that I don't really think are necessary that I mentioned, but there was all sorts of abuse happening. And so I'm not going to go into all the details. It's not that important for this purpose, but basically, if you can imagine being knocked down altogether, that was me. I was literally not knocked down to the ground. And what I had was, I was looking outwards always. I was looking for why do others have it different, right? I saw my life and I thought, well, that's just how it is for me. But then I thought, but maybe it's possible to still have it different, because there were other people who lived different kinds of lives. So that was one thing that kind of got me to, see hope, have hope in me. And I do remember I actually had thoughts of ending my life, because it was just there were points where it was just unbearable. And very close to our house, there was a train track. So there was trains passing by very often. So I thought, well, that would be an easy way out, right? It could just be fast and done. And I thought quite a lot about that. But then at one point I decided, no, I deserve to see what I can do with my life. I deserve to see how far I can bring it, what I can make out of it, what I can create for myself. And I'm not going to give anyone who's not helping me the satisfaction of breaking down. I'm not going to ruin my life because they're not able to be a parent, or because they're not able to appreciate me or love me the way that I would have to be as a child, probably, right? You would expect that a parent would care for their children. Anyway, so yeah, it was a lot of checking in with myself, being connected to my feelings, to my thoughts, being aware of myself, of my own thoughts, being aware of my emotions, being aware of the surroundings, and then have the survival system turned on, basically making sure to make the most out of every situation. That's what it forced me to grow up really fast and to take responsibility for myself really fast. Very early on, I started looking after myself, or looking also after my brothers. I took over the role of making sure that they were safe, or that they were smart in what they were doing in life, or somehow being the voice of reason, or making sure that they don't get lost if we were somewhere. I was always looking after them. So I guess I was just pushed into that in a way, and it was that survival system that turned on, that I just had to push forward if I wanted to make something out of my life. The other alternative would have been the train tracks. It was that simple, really. It was either or choice for me.
It's I've experienced many deaths in my life. Like I said, my father died when he was 6 years old. My nan died 1 year after that from broken heart because of the loss of his son. My father was just 29 years old. Then my grandfather died of broken heart from loss of his wife and loss of his son. That family started, being a bit distorted. Then I've seen many of my family on my mother's side pass. My uncle was in a tragic car accident with my cousin. There was 3 boys and there was 2 girls. My cousin was driving. The 3 boys died, my uncle and my cousin, instantly. And the family is the same. It tore apart. There was a lot of anger, frustration, blame. And I was probably around 12 years old at the time, and watching, even to this day, my family is still not united together. And what I always think is, when someone passes, as hard as it is, the more I understand about the universe and spirituality, everything is meaning. And these incidents create lessons for the people left behind. And what we should extract from there is the wisdom and so forth. But we get this, and again, that might be necessary. We get this confusion and this hate and frustration, and it's difficult knowing what to say because everybody deals with grief differently. Certainly I know what I certainly did. I just buried things down, and I got really good at cutting my emotions off. I got into bodybuilding, martial arts. I pushed my business. I pushed every single area of my life, and only recently I realized that this was just you know, the main reason I was doing this, you know, I had a paper round, I had a milk round, I was hustling, I was doing this from a very young age. I had multiple jobs. It was because I lost something so close to me that I had no control over. So any other opportunity where I could gain control, I was taking control, like I was, you know, filling a void. So I want to go back to, obviously, you know, these suicidal thoughts of ending your life. You know, how old were you when these started?
How old was I? That's a good question. I must have been around 10. I must have been around 10. Okay. 10, between 10 and 12, it was the most intense, these thoughts. And then at 12 around, I had a little bit of hope, because that's when we got the stepmother. And at the beginning, she was actually kind of nice, but it turned around really fast. Yeah, very early.
And how long did they last for?
So the thoughts that it's around 12, then I kind of started seeing hope, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. And what was I know you mentioned you started seeing hope, but what was this kind of, do you remember this incident? Because obviously you remember the death of your mum like it was yesterday, you're just 4 years old. And these significant turning points in your life, you know, do you remember the like literal trigger where you thought, no, I'm, you know, I deserve better. This is the time. How was that time for you? What was that day like?
I don't remember the day. I remember the moment. I was sitting at my desk where I would usually do my homework. And I'm not sure what I was really, whether it was something again happening in the house, or um, because there was always something, right? But I do remember sitting at that desk, and I was just thinking about that train track, or those train tracks. And I was thinking about how often the train goes by, and how I would have to jump so that I would not just get hurt, but actually get killed. I mean, it's really crazy how much into details I went through, thinking the process through of how I would do it, so I would do it right even. But that is ridiculous. Then I thought that I would give, because when it comes to the point where it's just, no, okay, well, now you just have to jump. Then I thought, well, I really don't think I'm willing to give up my life. I don't want to, because it's literally, I'm not there anymore. Once I do this, there's no going back. It's not, oh, you know what, I changed my mind, let's patch me back together and see if it could go different. No, it's definite, right? It's finite, it's finished. So at that point that it's finished, that's it point, I wasn't willing to give my life away. And I felt, no, I do deserve, even though maybe I don't have a mom, maybe I don't have a happy home, maybe I don't have any support at home, all sorts of things happening. There has to be a way for a better life. There just has to be a way. And when I was about 17, I actually ran away from home, because it all got too much. And I thought, well, this is now the point where I need to make a decision. Do I want to go crazy? Because I already decided I'm not going to kill myself, right? So I'm either going to go crazy and hurt someone, or I need to leave this destructive environment, because sometimes there's really no other way to solve your problem. Because especially when you're alone, you cannot deal with something so huge that you don't even have an impact on, really, because you're not listened to, you're not respected, your voice is not heard, your thoughts or ideas or suggestions are not even considered. So, and of course, with everything that was happening, continuous abuse in all sorts of ways, I'm like, no, this is not how I want to live. This is not supposed to be happening to me. There must be a way. I do know that there is another way to life. I just need to figure it out. And then I feel that in life, people come into your life, situations kind of present themselves where you are led to the next step that takes you out of that situation, that helps you. And then there's people who come into your life just for that purpose alone, and then they disappear again after a really short while when you are done with that situation. So it's so interesting. I'm so grateful. It's almost like angels are sent, right, in the form of human beings to your way to help you through certain situations, and you take their help and then they move on. They do their thing. You continue with your life, but they helped you. You really needed them. You couldn't really do it without them. So I was always open to receive help. I didn't know what it was going to be. I asked for help. I cried for help. I cried myself to sleep oftentimes. But that was really then when it came, I had to also take it. I couldn't say, no, don't worry about it. Or, no, I'm fine. No, then you have to take action. You have to make those steps. There's no fear. The desire for something better needs to be that strong. You need to be connected to it so much that nothing else will keep you from it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like I mentioned about the lessons, these people are coming the path at specifically the right time, which seems almost exactly what you need at that time. It's exactly what they need at that time as well, which is just another form of affirmation that there's a bigger meaning to this life. And like you said, people are getting connected. Death can be looked upon two ways. Okay, it can be looked upon like the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody around you, or the best thing, because death can teach us a lot, and we celebrate people's life, but often enough we don't celebrate their death. I don't think anybody celebrates the death of somebody, but that person passed it alone. That soul has ended the journey in order to teach lessons to the people being left, and that is worth celebrating. It's like, thank you so much, because what you don't understand the time. You certainly don't understand it when you're 4 years old. So this comes with maturity and wisdom. And like I mentioned, affirmation. You like, wow. Well, I'm crying for help. I'm praying for help, and help is turning up. So something's listening to me. And the other thing you mentioned as well is, taking action when it turns up. And I think the biggest problem why people, they don't see their prayers get answered in these things is because they don't believe they will. Now, you knew that there was a better life. There has to be. I'm not settling for this. I'm not. There has to be. And that desire, as you mentioned, has to be very strong. And the thought has to be synchronized with the emotion, the desire to do it, and the emotional action that bring that synergy and that harmony that brings that vibration to you. So that's brilliant. So 17 years old, you run away from home. Enough was enough. I'm turning into a woman. What encouraged you to go down the path you led down now?
Well, I would actually just go one step back first because there's so many aspects to the journey, right? Everyone has their own journey, and it gets to the point where you say, now it's enough is enough. I can't take it anymore. Something needs to change. And then that's when events start happening and things start coming your way, or people start coming your way. But then there's all this time before it gets to that point. That's very subjective. It's how much are you able to take before it gets to that point, right? And I was actually very I just got myself busy. I would play sports. I would keep myself busy with other things, right? So I would just always I would try to stay away from the environment as much as I could that was pulling me down, and kind of engage in the environments where I felt uplifted, or somehow at least safe, right? Away from the problems. And that is something that is, I guess, it could be good in a way, but it could also be detrimental if you kind of pull it out too long. Because when I was very young, I couldn't really do much about my situation. At least I didn't see it as a possibility. But once you get a little older, and now when we are in our age where we are, we're not innocent small children anymore, or powerless children anymore. We can make our own decisions. We can decide what we want to do with our life. We can decide whether we want to fly somewhere to meet someone, or to go to a training or a seminar, or if we want to meet with certain people or not, or if we want to socialize with certain people or not. So what it was for me was I was always just choosing the environments that supported me to go further. I chose people that I surrounded myself with. I was always very picky. That is so, so important. If there's one thing I would say that is the most important that was for me, is choose your people right. If you're among people that are very negative, always complaining, just saying how nothing is ever going to change, it's always been that way, and they have no chance of changing anything, no power of doing anything about their life, of course you're going to think the same, or at least even if you will not agree with it, you will not have that courage to step outside of that circle and be seen weird or greedy, or is it never enough for you, or what else do you want out of life, and all of these things will come to you and it will pull you back down. For me, I just that was one thing that was actually a good thing, I guess, because I never had a big circle or even a small circle that I would feel like I'm a part of, because I felt like I'm different because I don't have my mom. So in a way that also saved me from being attached to what people think about me. So I was weird, I was different. So, okay, I can just be different in my own way, and whatever they will say, it doesn't matter, right? So I would just go out there and meet people that are business oriented. And that's how I also saw that it's possible to create your own life and earn as much as you're worth, not what they tell you. I was actually at the university in Ljubljana, and I studied economy, business and commerce and all that. And there's so many people in this direction studying these things. And then I also went on to studying cultural studies and anthropology. I was interested, but there was nothing that I could really have a job where I would feel like I am being rewarded for what I can bring to the table. Even with my then understanding of the world, I knew I could do much more than what a job would give me. So I would always just, whenever I had a thought, I would think, well, it's there for a reason. How about I explore it? I was just open to seeing what is possible, I guess. I didn't shut down the thoughts that I was having that were positive. That was, I guess, the most important thing, that I didn't shut down a positive thought. Well, maybe it's possible that I do this. Well, maybe it's possible that I meet that person. And then I thought, well, maybe I don't do it. I will not be able to do it right away, but that doesn't mean I can't ever go in that direction or do what I want to do. I just need to get there. And I always say it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared for it, because that is a bad situation that you're in, and something presents to yourself and you say, oh my God, I can't handle it. It's beyond me. I can't do that. So I always, even though my dreams or goals didn't come true right away, I always still made sure I was going to seminars, improving my skills, my people skills, communication skills, being on stage, working with people. I was so shy when I was young that I didn't want to stay at the same table with one person that I barely knew. Because, for example, if I would go for a drink with my friend and she would bring her friend, I didn't know that friend. And if my friend would go to the bathroom, I would go with her, because I would hate staying at the table with a person that I didn't really know, because I didn't know what I would talk to them about. I was so shy. It was terrible. Now I'm working with people all over the world. I mean, it's a completely different thing, but it didn't happen overnight. I had to push myself into situations. I had to surround myself with people that were not my inner circle or my people that I would always know. I had to stretch my skills, my comfort zone a lot for years, and I had to stay at it, right? So even if I didn't have success right away and it felt awkward and it felt uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, I kept at it. I was never afraid to look silly doing it, or weird, or do it wrong. Perhaps many people are afraid to do things wrong, but if you don't make any mistakes, you're not going to get any further in anything, because you can't possibly do everything right in the first try, right? So that was actually that's what it turned me, when I started meeting the kind of people that I wanted to be, that were kind of my vision for myself in the future. That's what kept pulling me in that direction. And the more people you get to know that are like that, the more you get pulled and attracted to even more those kind of people. So that really was actually just meeting the right kind of people, being focused on who I surround myself with.
Yeah, and it's brilliant because you just finished up with what you started on there, where you kind of make sure you're around the right people, choose your environment. If anything's pulling you down, get out of that, and that's ultimately because you attract and you become a product of your own environment, whether you like it or not. So you attract these negative people. If you're feeling internally negative, that is the message you're giving out, and surrounding yourself with people that you admire and aspire to be. And I can see it just from our conversation, and obviously from seeing what you do professionally, very similar to me. I have a great way of understanding humans, and very empathetic now, and my knowledge on exactly what people are feeling and thinking at specific times. And this all stems from me looking inside myself and understanding what the hell is going on with my own emotions. Why are these thoughts coming in? Why are these emotions coming in? What did this trauma do? So when I'm having a conversation, be it a prospect or a client that I've worked with for some time, I can see the trigger points, and I can see the areas of vulnerability and the areas of shame and the areas of doubt and all these other emotions, because I felt them all. I experienced them all, and I worked on them, and I haven't got to point them out direct and stab a wound when it's still healing, but I can position exactly what that person needs, what I feel, because which will help me at that time. And what I always do, and it's a great way of being empathetic, and I'm sure you do the same, is I just tell a story about myself, and that's relatable. And I like to move people through storytelling. So I'll give a scenario of a particular time in my life, and I put myself in a position to be judged, because going back to where your point was, a lot of people, they want to attempt to do something because they're in fear of judgment. The reason why they're in fear of judgment, because they're judging themselves. So they assume, or they're attracting people that are judging them as well. So when you literally are content with who you are, and you say, I'm not perfect, but I'm working on being the best human being I can be, then, you open to, I'm going to make mistakes. If I say something on this podcast today and I do another one in 3 days time, 30 days time, 3 years time, I might not even agree with what I'm saying. And that is the process of learning, because I'm not the same person. I'm more mature because I'm an older human being. So that is brilliant. And I guess that's where you get a lot of your skills and your wisdom passed down from, is from the early traumatic experiences that you made it through. And who knows, you may be one of them victims, victims to themselves, really, that ended their life early and wasn't here to tell the tale and to help other people move in that right direction. So now today, obviously, there's been many years, not saying, anything that could be offensive, but many moons have passed. Got to be careful, women. You got to put it.
No worries.
Many years has passed since, you was 4 years old, of course, and only a few since you were 17. So, obviously, we never fully heal. That's part of our human experience, because we are born into a biological suit that has emotions and anchors and all these things. And the whole process is to, slowly detach away from them. Once we achieve that, then it's time to go peacefully, because we've reached that state of oneness and peace. So, how is your experience now? And do you still have days where you kind of, you still struggle with the conversations about the past of your mum, or about anyone in particular? And how do you work on these emotional outbursts nowadays?
Yeah, it's a good point, because it never really goes away entirely. And especially when it's a parent, and one that I know, my mother was an angel. If she would have still been alive, my life would have been completely different, for sure. Although I may not be the person that would probably not be the person I am today. So yes, everything is good for something, like you said before already. Even the most horrible things in life happen for a reason, and if you make the most out of them, you can grow with them. But still, of course, this emptiness, this hole, I don't know what it feels to have a mother. I actually don't really feel what it feels or know what it feels to have a father. So I don't really know what it is to have that unconditional family bond, except with my two brothers, right? And that emptiness, that sadness still kind of kicks in every now and again, but not really nearly as often. It's just here and there, really, when I would really think about it, or if something would happen and I feel a little bit alone in that moment. And it's just, we're human. Yes, we slip. But then what kind of picks me up as well is it's two things. One is I remember the day. I so vividly remember the day when I was as old as my mom was when she died. And I remember it so vividly because it was, even a week or two before that, I was terrified. I was panicking. I was actually shaking. I couldn't sleep properly. I was like, oh my God, in 2 weeks from now, or in 1 week from now, or tomorrow, that would have been her time. That would have been now my time to go if I would die as old as she was or as young as she was. And it just takes me back to that moment because I realize I am still here though. I have been given the opportunity to live my life. I have been given, and as long as I will, I don't know how long I will be here, but as long as I am, I hope to give the best of myself, to do the best for myself, because when I start with me, not in an egocentric sense that me, give me more, but if I work on myself, that I feel good, that I feel good about myself, about my life, about what I'm doing, about the people that surround me, about everything, just smallest things, then I can be the best for others around me. And that's why it kind of brings me back to being grateful for being here, for having the opportunity to contributing in some way. I don't know, if one person will have a better way of getting through their challenges because I said one word or one sentence, thank God. And I'm happy and I'm grateful for that I was able to deliver that. But the second thing is also, like I said before, it always comes back to who you have around yourself. And so I have one or two friends that are really, really close. I never needed a massive number of people around me. I always only had one or two people that and it was kind of stages, right? It was one person at one stage, and then it was the next person. Kind of gradually they were growing as I was growing. Then another person came in that was maybe more capable of or able to support me in that stage. And so I would have one or two people that I could just talk to and talk about positive things, or just ideas or the feelings, and just talk about, because they are mothers. I'm not a mother yet. And so kind of just, that understanding, that loving energy, just to feel that you are accepted as you are, that helps a lot. So you definitely have to surround yourself with positive people. That is the most important thing for me anyway. And it's just so powerful. But always come back to gratitude as well. We are here. We have this opportunity to make something of this life, whatever it is, wherever we are right now. Doesn't have to be where we will end up in 5 years. Just imagine if you change one small thing every day. You don't have to turn your life upside down right away in one day. That's just what freaks people out. I think they think they have to change everything in one day. It's not like you have to run away somewhere, unless that's the situation. Then you need to, surround yourself with strong people who can help you with that. But anyway, small changes, small things that will improve your experience. Imagine how your life will be in 1 year, in 5 years, let alone in 10 years or 25 years. It will be completely different, and it will be unrecognizable. And it's not even about, what you will achieve. For me, it's not what I will achieve. It's who I'm becoming in the process, and how much more I can also experience because of that. Because you can put two people in the same situation, and one has grown into that and is able to handle it, and the other one will not know what to do because it will be too much for them. And it's the same situation, right? That's why when people get wealthy working for it, for example, it's just a silly example, but it's true. if someone is working for their success and they get wealthy, they will know how to handle their money. But most people, or actually all of the people so far that we know, unless they were successful before, who have won lottery tickets, they go back to where they started or even end up worse because they simply don't know what to do with that amount of money, how to handle it, how to invest it, all these things. So as we go through each step of the way, each day in our life, we are growing, we're developing, and that's what actually makes me feel kind of like happy, really fulfilled and satisfied with where I am now, as well, is that I know I have become much more than what I have where I started off. And there's so much more still that I can become, and where I am right now, and I'm doing the best I can every day. It's an ongoing process. Like you said, when you get to the end, then you fulfilled everything, then it's time to leave anyway. Then I wouldn't be here anymore if there was nothing left for me to learn or grow into.
Yeah, I love what you just said there. It's brilliant because, you need to know yourself, but people, if they just look at things from a different perspective, everyone just wants everything now or tomorrow, rush, rush. Now, you mentioned, people winning a lottery. You could say the same with singers who rise to the top really fast. You could say, people who are world champions at a young age, why life explode, it overwhelms them. Usually they don't know what to do with it. So you have to love the journey as part of the process, as teaching you the necessary tools to sustain that amount of wealth or success, whatever else you want to call it. And, just hearing you talking now, I can see there's a lot of resemblance in terms of, your way of thinking. My father died when he was 29 years old. I didn't think I was going to live very long. I grew up, and I honestly, and only the last few years, again, like I said, by me going into myself and working with my therapist and my mind realignment coach and doing some regressions, I was able to see some really big impressions left in my mindset. So because I've never thought I was going to live, up until 30, for example, it was just in my subconscious, I thought I was drowning. So I was swimming really hard. And I was achieving, like, anybody who knows me on a personal level would know my capability of what I can do in a 24-hour day. And that comes from that desire or that fear of my life is going to be short, so I have to do as much as I can now. And, I go back to that day, and you said, and I call it in my book, I call it the passing of ages, where my life was coming to the age that my father was. And it was like new territory for me. And granted, exactly like you said, every day that passes is a blessing. But up until that day, I remember I went to the cemetery. All right, it was 2017, 2015. I went to the cemetery. It was New Year's Day. And I'd been to the cemetery so many times to visit my father's grave. And a week later, I was going to be 29. All right. So I was going into the age he was, and it was a big, I thought about this time for many years of my life. And, I didn't know how long I was going to live after that. So the day before, I just registered for a competition. All right. And the competition was on May the 9th. So I goes to the cemetery and, I speak out loud. It's very therapeutic. I find it very calming. And I say, I'm coming to the age now. In a week's time, I'm going to be 29 years old. And I looked at the grave, and you know what? I didn't even notice this on the grave. It said John Kaler died tragically in a fire at 29 years old on May the 9th. All right? May the 9th. I didn't even know what day he died on. The day was like impactful for me, but I didn't really remember the day. And I just signed for a competition on the May the 9th. Now, up until this point, I've done multiple competitions. It's always miserable. I'm always in pain. I'm always in suffering. I'm always hungry. I'm always tired. I'm always complaining. Every day I got closer to that May the 9th event when I was 29 years old. And I thought, how can I complain? On the 29th, on the 9th of May, my father's life ended. It doesn't matter how much pain and suffering I'm going through. After that day, I can eat what I want, I can do what I want, and my life is going to continue. And that shift in my mindset, since that moment, I've looked at life as such a blessing because I thought every day that passes this day, somebody else I know didn't have an opportunity to live. So I have no right to complain. I have no right to mourn unless I literally don't want to be here and squander this opportunity. So that was very important for me. And I say to people as well, because a lot of people listening to this and a lot of people I meet, when it comes to their birthday, they'll want to just pass it off because they're getting a year older. And, you know, let's not deny the fact we're all going to die. The older you get, the less time you have left. So they don't celebrate. And I say, look, you know, living another year is a privilege that many people don't yet have. You have to celebrate this. It's a reason to celebrate.
Yeah.
So very powerful. True. All right. So one last question for you. Now, obviously, we physique transformation, but we help clients, as you know, from working with entrepreneurs. And one thing I wanted to mention, what I see it with many entrepreneurs, high profile clients, and just people working in the gym, doesn't really matter. The biggest problem people have, okay, in order to transform their life is their mindset. You see, you work with anyone, it doesn't matter what level they're at. That's why businesses fail. It's not because the idea is not good, it's the person's mindset running the business. That's just the way it is. So, you know, what one piece of advice would you give to anyone out there who wanted to transform one area of their life, be that their body, their finances, their relationships, their business, whatever it may be? What one piece of advice would you give anybody who wanted to transform their life?
This one is huge, and yes, it's always mindset, and it just comes down to what you allow yourself to go for, to achieve. But it's also, so it's very complex in a way, because sometimes as well in physical, like, you know, someone maybe wants to be fit and lose weight, but they have someone at home who they feel that they would be feeling guilty if they would be more fit than, I don't know, their mom or dad or brother or sister, whoever. And so, or they will make them feel lonely with being more beautiful by losing weight or whatever, and they don't want to. So it's this emotional connection. I would say allow yourself to see how you would be better for the world if you went for what you have in your mind that you want. I can guarantee you it's there for a reason. And if you have a thought about being better in on any level in your life, in any area in your life, it's there for a reason. So at least be willing to explore it, to be open to see why it's there, why you have these thoughts, why are you being pulled to do something about it. Maybe you can be an inspiration to people. Maybe you can change someone's life. Maybe you can change your own life. And whatever you do, the most important thing is always consider this. It comes down to your standards for yourself. Whatever you choose to do, it's your standard for yourself, for your life. And that is your decision, how you're going to show up in this life. How are you going to be present? How are you going to interact with others? Everything will come back down to how much you allow yourself to live that what is in you. So the standard of your life is really your decision to play full out and to be unapologetically you, and with that inspire others. People like to follow strong people. People like to follow people who they can feel that they are inspired by, that they have something to learn from, that they can, you know, interact with them in a positive, encouraging way. People don't like to be around or follow people who are negative. I have not once seen a statue put somewhere to a critic. Not once. There's not one statue that I was know of that is of a critic who would be totally negative, totally destructive to people's lives. There's always people who are inspirational. It's people who are making people move further in their own life. They pull other people with them. And so if you can see it as an inspiration, that one small thing, it may not even be that huge. You don't have to be like yourself. You are extremely successful. You are very, very well aware of how to work with your body to bring it to this state of athletic, you are just amazing, an amazing example of what is possible. But not everyone might really want to have such a big transformation. Maybe they want a small transformation, but even that smaller transformation in life can be inspiring to someone else and can be encouraging to someone else. So first, keep in mind there are people always watching, and you never know whose life you can change for the better if you do something positive for yourself. And two, it comes down to your standards, and it becomes a lifestyle. It's not something you do that you force yourself into. It's in your mind for a reason. It's you just have to turn it into a lifestyle. It's your choice. It's your daily choices. So it's not about I have to do this. It's I want to do this. This is who I want to be. Because no one is making us be something. We just agree to it. We think we have to be a certain way. We agree to it. We take it. Okay, I need to be this way because my father expects it of me, or my friends expect it of me. But it's not true. You just are that because you agreed to it. So you make sure you take control of who you want to be, make your own decisions, and set your own standards for your life. That would be my, I hope it's not too long, but that would be my
that's great.
advice.
It's been the message all through this conversation really is, listen to the voice, trust your intuition. You never know. People just turn up, as you were saying. You never know where they might lead to. I mean, I guess you can speak for this. You mentioned obviously, my success in terms of the bodybuilding career. That was just something I wanted to change the way I looked because I was not happy. I had no idea that I was going to go off and win Mr. Wales, Mr. It was never part of it. But that initial thought I had at the time was obviously that was the seed. That was the seed that was planted from somewhere to give me the desire and allow me to see how fruitful this journey can be, from changing a small part of myself and observing how different people look to me and how different I look to myself, So definitely listen to this, go with it, and I love it. Very good. So where can people reach out to you if they need some coaching, if they need some advice, if they just want to, share with you on how you help them move forward in any way?
It's either social media, Anja Rogan Pirc, my full name. They can find me on Facebook, or they can find me on my website. Even if they don't want to necessarily talk about business coaching, or in looking for a coach, but would look for a bit of feedback, I'm open to that. I'm not one of those who always charges for every minute that they talk to people. I love to meet people. I love to get to know people properly. And if I can help, great. If I can't, maybe I know someone who can help further. My website is also anjaroganpirc.com. So it's very simple, and there's a calendar that you can click and connect with me. And it's, very straightforward. I'd be happy to connect with anyone.
Great. And we're going to put this in the link below as well. So thank you very much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. It's been a nice conversation. We spoke about it for some time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
you. Know what? You said you started with the seed of thought that you wanted to transform your physique, but look where it actually took you. You're not really only just training people on a physical level. You are doing so much more. You are, with this podcast, reaching people on a different level as well, working on their mindset. So this is a huge inspiration to anyone who's looking for at least the hope that something is possible, and to open the door to what else is possible. What else can we bring our lives to? I think you're doing a great job. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. And, really appreciate this. And same as like you said, if there's one person listens to this podcast or listens to this message and benefits from this conversation, then I'll be a happy man, because, if we can move someone forward in the way, and I know somebody already have, because I have, from having that conversation, sitting down with you and listening to you talking and having that, very mature intellectual discussion on these issues that we buried on for years, I know have helped me. So that's definitely one benefit. So thank you for that. And thank you for anybody who's watching and listening, of course. Comment below. We're really interested to understand, you know, maybe you've been through some traumas yourself. If you've lost any parents, if you lost any husband, a wife, children, anyone in particular, you know, comment below. Sharing is caring. And as you can see, this is a very welcoming platform. Nothing is filtered. Everything is authentic and genuine. And we're all doing this in the purpose of just moving people forward just a little bit further in the direction they're already going. So thank you. I really appreciate it. Have a good day. Yeah.
Bye.